This is the second of two provincial candidate forums that the Dufferin Board of Trade has organized for members of Dufferin-Caledon, and it is really nice to have all of you in attendance, including those that are wearing shorts this evening. And there are many of you doing so. My name is Joe Andrews. I'm the past chair of the Dufferin Board of Trade. I also currently sit as a director. I'm also the director of Humber College, Orangeville. And it is really a pleasure to be your moderator tonight of this second forum. We are going to be going through a few issues of protocol with you in just a few minutes. But the Dufferin Board of Trade is a membership organization that champions a robust voice for business in Dufferin County. We are proud to continue the tradition of hosting election forums with the candidates seeking election in Dufferin-Caledon. I would also like to first and foremost start by thanking the candidates for putting their names forward to represent Dufferin County and for being here tonight to speak about our community and the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. Candidates from the Trillium Party and the Consensus Party have declined an invitation to participate in tonight's forum. I also, again, would like to thank each of you who are here tonight. This particular telecast, which is being broadcast on Rogers, will be shown at various times throughout the month of May and June, leading up to the election on June the 7th. Your questions that were in fact submitted as part of this process were in fact vetted and reviewed and have formed what we hope to be an informative evening, one that may also entertain you too as well, but it will be engaging, covering a broad range of topics. It is important to note that questions were kept confidential and candidates were not briefed of the questions ahead of the forum. We'd also like to thank the Dufferin Federation of Agriculture for their support for this evening event, as well as our local media partners for help in promoting this event. Out of courtesy, I'd like to remind all of you, if you happen to have a phone, please ensure that it has been turned off, and I see the majority of you now doing so, which does mean that obviously you're going to receive some form of text messaging or an indication that it is really warm outside. We also encourage you, if you so desire, to, of course, utilize social media. We do have two hashtags for those of you that do use Twitter. One hashtag is hashtag OurDufferin, and the other one is OnPoli. That is ONPOLI. We encourage you, if you so desire, to take some photos, but again, use your discretion if you plan on using those on any other social media site. The Dufferin Board of Trade would also like to thank the folks here at Orangeville District Secondary School, and in particular, the students from the AV Tech program who really put together the forum venue for us very quickly this afternoon and this evening. They've been very kind and diligent in doing so. And I also once again would like to thank Greg and Heather Holmes of Holmes Appliance in Shelburne for providing us with the audio this evening. So as we move ahead, no doubt there's going to be a very interesting evening for all of us here. I think one is an opportunity for us to listen. One is for us to be curious, and the other is, in fact, to certainly observe the political process. As we have identified that this is a political forum, unlike a debate, the candidate forum is structured in such a way that each candidate will have time to provide their party and or their view on a variety of questions. Now, the forum structure will allow activity to occur, but as was very clearly promoted by the Dufferin Board of Trade through the website and other communication, any questions to be considered and posed to the candidates were to be submitted directly to the Dufferin Board of Trade, and they were in fact reviewed by the Election Forums Committee and into categories that fall under the following four pillars of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce Vote Prosperity Platform. And those four key pillars are strengthening business competitiveness, fostering job creation, building healthy communities, and improving government accountability. Now, as we have our candidates on stage, I would like to also remind you that there will not be any questions from the floor. There's also a protocol in place regarding a code of conduct. Throughout the venue, which is here at the Orangeville District Secondary, as well as in the hallways, there were various information sheets placed. The code of conduct applies to those in attendance, but also applies to each one of our candidates who have signed and have agreed to the code of conduct. It's a way of us, of course, ensuring that we have some civility in tonight's process. Now, regarding the format of tonight, we are going to introduce each one of our candidates. We'll provide a brief introduction of who they are with the bios that they have supplied us, and then we will also end up going through some of the rules that exist within tonight's forum. I also would like to just take the time to acknowledge the chair of the Dufferin Board of Trade, Pete Renshaw, who is in fact going to be our official timer, and we will end up going through that in just a minute on how that whole piece ends up being a part of tonight's forum. So, all of our candidates, in fact, were required to pick a number from 1 to 5 to identify their speaking order to start off with. We will also end up going through this sequentially, and we will walk you through that as we proceed through tonight's forum. So what I'd like to do is just introduce each one of our candidates, and you can certainly hold your applause after I've finished with the 5th candidate. I will provide a brief bio in just a few minutes, but our 5 candidates that we have here this evening include Jeff Harris, Laura Campbell, Andrea Malarkey, Sylvia Jones, and Bob Gardiner. Now, as for the election forum format, as I will end up going through a brief introduction of each one of our candidates and their bios, once we end up going through that, then each one of our candidates will be given up to 5 minutes to provide a statement of their party's platform. Then we will get into the questions, and we have numerous questions for this evening. They vary from one spectrum to another, but they do follow under the 4 pillars of the Dufferin Board of Trade on the Ontario Chamber of Commerce as well. We will also have a wrap-up period too, which will include an opportunity for the candidates at the conclusion of tonight's event to provide a 3-minute wrap-up statement. For those of you that are in the back row, you might not be able to see it, but I can tell you that our candidates can certainly see the lights up here, and we're talking about the timing lights and not the lights for illumination on television. So our lighting, in fact, from a timing perspective, will be as follows. When the question has been posed and the candidate has been selected or identified, the green light will end up being illuminated. When 30 seconds approximately is left in the time that they have to answer the question, which is 2 minutes, the yellow light will then be illuminated, and then at the conclusion of the 2-minute period, the red light will then be illuminated. I will, out of courtesy, interrupt the candidate if they continue on after 2 minutes. So far, everybody has agreed to the playing field, and they've done a real good job. Like, it's been really nice so far. But we'll see how nice we are tonight. All right, moving ahead with our introduction to our candidates. I'd like to introduce, and this will be from your left to right, and again, this was a sequence that was selected by our candidates randomly from numbers 1 to 5. Candidate from my right, from your left, is Jeff Harris, is your Ontario Libertarian Party candidate. Happily married and the father of 2 children, Jeff is concerned that professional politicians are ignoring the concerns of regular people. Jeff is probably best known for the consumer advocacy site that he created in the 1990s, thesqueakywheel.com. The site is still running 20 years later. It has been featured on the Discovery Channel, written about in magazines and newspapers, and has been the focus of study in business schools across the world. What a lot of people don't know about him is that he's also helped to start and run a successful multi-million-dollar document management software company based out of Toronto. For 20-plus years, they've been helping both public sector and for-profit companies streamline their business processes, reduce their costs, and eliminate their dependence on paper. Based on his experience in both technology and business, Jeff knows that if given the chance, he can help make the Ontario government more efficient and more responsive to the needs of its citizens. Again, Jeff Harris. Our next candidate is Laura Campbell. She is your Ontario Green Party candidate. A mother of 2 small children, a small business owner, and a PhD student at the University of Toronto, while her academic work focuses on international economics, her day-to-day life is spent running a small restaurant she owns with her husband here in Orangeville and taking her kids outside to nature. Laura has always been a country girl at heart, having growing up in Caledon Hills, and after a time away to study, she knew that she had to return to her home community. It is here that she decided to put down new roots. Laura and her husband prioritize local organic produce as much as possible and build meaningful relationships with customers. Those relationships are the most rewarding part of her work. Just as she's been serving her customers, Laura wants to serve her community with integrity, care, and deep commitment to sustainability. Sustainability means fiscal, social, and environmental responsibility. Laura Campbell. Our third candidate is Andrea Malarkey, your Ontario New Democrat Party candidate. Andrea was born and raised in Thailand, I should say Trinidad, my apologies, and comes from a family heavily involved in politics. Andrea came to Canada 30 years ago and has been a resident of Dufferin-Caledon for almost 3 decades. Andrea has raised 3 children in our beautiful riding. She has firsthand experience with challenges faced by immigrants, single parents, and residents of Dufferin-Caledon in general. She studied history at the University of Toronto and occupational health and safety at Humber College. Andrea works in the field of health and safety and, as such, has intimate knowledge of labor codes and issues surrounding worker rights and protections. Andrea Malarkey. Our fourth candidate is Sylvia Jones, your Ontario Progressive Conservative Party candidate. First elected in 2007, Sylvia has been working tirelessly to voice the issues that matter to Dufferin-Caledon residents. She's lived in Orangeville for over 30 years with her husband David and their 2 children. Committed to serving her community, Sylvia is first and foremost an advocate for Dufferin-Caledon. She has successfully advocated for safety improvements to Highway 10, as well as calling for lower hydro rates, more public transit, and better access to mental health and long-term care in our community. Sylvia is one of only 7 candidates across Ontario endorsed in the 2018 election by the nonpartisan nonprofit group Green PAC. Sylvia currently serves as Deputy Leader of the PC Caucus and the critic for the Transportation and Infrastructure portfolio. Sylvia has introduced many pieces of legislation that have been adopted into government legislation and have become law. In 2012, Sylvia Jones was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. Sylvia Jones. And our fifth candidate is Bob Gordonnaire. He is your Ontario Liberal Party candidate. Raised in Orillia, Ontario, Bob left home in 1969 to work and go to school. He married his wife Elise in 1971, and they have 4 adult children and 6 grandchildren. In 1981, they bought their first farm in the Orangeville area and have been farming ever since in Dufferin County. Bob spent 3 years on the Port Credit Police Department and 1 year on the Peel Regional Police Force before transferring to the Brampton Fire Department, where he served for 32 years. Bob has served on many boards and has been a member of the voting delegate of the Beef Farmers of Ontario, the BFO, for many years. He was elected to the board of directors for 9 years and became vice president and president during the last 4 years until 2016, representing 19,000 beef producers in Ontario. Bob has also served on the executive of Canadian Cattlemen's Association, where he dealt with national and international trade and agricultural issues. Bob Gordonnaire. Thank you for your patience as I go through that formality, but I think it's very important that all of you in the audience have an opportunity to know who we have on stage. And again, we want to thank our candidates for being here this evening. And again, we also want to thank you for being here this evening. So the format is as follows. We will provide an opportunity for each one of our candidates to now go through a 5-minute introduction of their platform. We will be starting from our right, your left, so candidate number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then as we move to question number 1, we will go through that first sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And as we proceed to question number 2, it will be 2, 3, 4, 5, and then to 1, and you'll follow along quite easily. So our first candidate, Jeff Harris, the floor is yours.
My name is Jeff Harris, and I'm a business owner, not a career politician. I only got into politics. Oh, that's better. Sorry. I think you probably heard the beginning. I'm Jeff Harris. I'm a business owner, not a career politician. I only got into politics this past December when all 3 big parties came out with a platform supporting a carbon tax and billions of dollars in new spending. I wanted to make sure that voters who disagreed with those policies had a candidate who would stand up for them and say no to the carbon tax and say no to billions of dollars in new spending, especially at a time when we don't have a balanced budget and any new spending just means more borrowing. Now, I'm guessing there are probably a lot of people out there who don't really know much about the Libertarian Party. To put it in terms that most people will be familiar with, if you think about the Conservative Party as being to the center-right of the political spectrum and the Liberals being to the left, the Libertarian Party is directly in the center. The Libertarians are fiscally conservative and socially liberal, the best of both worlds. We've got a common sense platform. We support balanced budgets, lower taxes, lower hydro rates, and quicker access to health care. Most of all, we support choice. Here are a couple of examples. Healthcare choice. The Ontario government for decades has been unable to reduce long wait times for diagnostic tests. Given that fact, it makes no sense for the government to make it illegal for you to seek out alternative providers. Under a libertarian government, you will have a choice. If you have a sick child or an elderly parent who needs an MRI or a CT or some other medically necessary test, you'll be able to use a public or private provider. Nobody will be criminalized for trying to get medical help. Giving patients a choice, it's the compassionate thing to do. And the other example I've got here is school choice. Currently, if you've got 2 or 3 schools in your neighborhood, the government will arbitrarily tell you which school your child has to attend without any input from you. Under a libertarian government, you would have a choice. You might choose a school because it has great teachers or because it has specific extracurricular activities that you think would benefit your child. It might even be that one school is just more convenient since it's on your way to and from work. Whatever the reason, the choice would be yours. Giving parents a choice, I think it's the smart thing to do. Now, the biggest challenge that libertarian candidates like myself have is getting in front of enough people to get our message out. When people hear the libertarian platform, they like it. So, in an effort to get as many people hearing the message as possible, I'm going to do something that you've probably never seen a politician do before. On June 3rd at 1 p.m. in downtown Orangeville, I will be giving out money to voters. No, not taxpayer dollars. We've seen lots of politicians do that. I'm going to be giving out my own money. We've all become accustomed to politicians asking us for more money. We're used to politicians promising to do all kinds of things for us after they get elected. With a libertarian government, you'll pay less in taxes and you'll have more money in your pocket. I want you to have the opportunity to find out how that feels, even before the election. Of course, you probably know that Ontario has about 380,000 regulations. So I'm sure at some point some big government type is going to say, Jeff, you can't give away money to voters, even if it's your own money. So my advice is that you come out early before they try to shut us down. Politics as usual doesn't have to be the usual. Working together, we can change the political system and have some fun doing it. I hope that you'll join me, and I look forward to speaking with each and every one of you.
Opening address from candidate number 2, Laura Campbell.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I'd like to say, in the spirit of reconciliation, we're on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. As a Green Party member, we take reconciliation very seriously, and we have an Indigenous worldview. Thank you so much for being here on such a beautiful evening when you could be out barbecuing and cleaning out your gardens. And also thank you to everybody up on this stage, Jeff, Andrea, Sylvia, and Bob. I said to the Dufferin Board of Trade members that, you know, we're all really on the same side. We're all trying to make Ontario a better place. We're all here to serve you. So thank you for being here. As you know, I'm a mom, I'm a PhD student, and a small business owner. And the challenges of our times have become incredibly evident to me in those roles, and they've been amplified. I've been sort of sitting on the sidelines waiting for a substantial shift in our political life that puts people and planet first. That shift doesn't seem to be coming under the existing political parties, and that's why I joined the Greens, because we need to be doing politics differently. Though we don't yet hold a seat at Queen's Park, we've already been working for you for years. Under the leadership of Mike Schreiner, our party has fought hard between elections for the issues that matter to you. We're a significant voice in the fight to stop the mega quarry in Melancton. In 2016, we led the charge to get big money out of politics. Mike Schreiner sort of spearheaded the effort. He got all the party leaders to the table to agree to ban corporate and union donations to political parties and to cap personal funding to the parties as well, which is a significant victory for democracy. And it was great that all the parties came to the table and agreed to that. We've also been pressuring the Liberal government to do more to protect water. We've been working to get more affordable housing. And we've also been lobbying for smart legislation that helps both workers and businesses. It's such an impossible choice. You know, do we give someone a minimum wage increase or do we harm small business? We don't need to do that. We can find a middle of the road approach, and the Greens have been advocating for that. I'd say that if you look at what's happening across Canada and also across the world, Greens are making a difference. Elected Greens in BC are holding the balance of power. Peter Bevan-Baker in PEI, who's the Green Party leader there, is currently more popular than the Premier of PEI. So we are electable, and we are making things happen across Canada. The future's now. The Green Party platform has 3 major pillars: jobs, people, planet. And they're all connected. Here's where we'll deliver change. For jobs, we need to invest in clean tech. It's a $6 trillion global industry, and we're sitting on the sidelines not getting in there. We have to. We need to resurrect our manufacturing sector so people in my generation have good, well-paying jobs, and those jobs have to benefit the environment. For people, we want to get at the root of our healthcare issues, and I know that all of us up here tonight will be talking about mental health as a major concern. So absolutely, we need to talk about preventing illness and catching it early. We need more money for community care and long-term care for seniors. We need a basic income guarantee to streamline social support so people get the help they need. They don't have to worry. And for planet, of course, it's no secret that the Greens are advocating for environmental protection. We think the Greenbelt is great, but we need to do more. We're losing farmland at a rate of 365 acres per day, an area the size of Toronto every single year. As your MPP, I would introduce legislation to permanently protect Ontario's prime farmland and source water regions. We would invest $200 million over 4 years to pay farmers to protect water and store carbon. We would invest in transit and work towards getting more renewable energy and more money in your pockets through a carbon fee and dividend, not a carbon tax, something much more progressive that will help the lowest income people, which means polluters pay and not citizens. Thank you again for being here, and I really look forward to the questions.
Candidate number 3, Andrea Malarkey.
Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for all attending tonight. As you all know, my name is Andrea Malarkey. Don't make fun of that. I have lived in Bolton for over 30 years and brought all 3 of my kids up in Bolton. One of the reasons why I decided, I'm not a politician, I'm not a career politician, I decided that this time around I wanted to give back to my community, and not just Bolton, but the whole riding of Dufferin-Caledon. One of the things that I always look forward to is coming home, even if downtown Toronto, and as soon as you hit me, I feel there's a difference in the air, there's a difference in our surrounding. When we drive through this area, it's beautiful. The Greenbelt is beautiful. We need to keep that for our children. I'm a part of this community. I have been a single mom for 10 years, and some of the things that the community have helped me with, I think that we are losing some of those services, and we need to get those services back. One of the reasons why I wanted to run for the NDP is because they're family focused. We need to think of our seniors. I look at our seniors that they need to grow old with dignity. And our children, they need help. Some of our kids, I can tell you that our kids do not open up to us parents. Okay, they keep a lot inside. And if they have support, sorry, I have a bit of a cold. They need support in schools. They need support from the community. It takes a community to bring up children, not just the schools. So we need to be a little bit more involved. And this is why I said the NDP is family-oriented. We need to look at some of our platform where Medicare, schools for our children. Too many schools are overcrowded. I've spoken to some teachers, especially kindergarten teachers, where one teacher has 30 children that they're in a little space. We need more for our kids at school, in schools. We need to look at those aspects to ensure that our children get or receive what they deserve. Children that go to universities, student loans, it's their interest rates. Why do we have such high interest rates for our children who needs to, and even after getting into the job market, still paying for student loans 10 years later? Right? So these are the things that I look at because my child had to do that. She went to school, she worked full-time, she studied full-time, and then had this huge debt, student debt. My daughter, I'm very proud of her. She just did everything on her own. I told her I can only do so much as a single parent, and she said, "Mom, you know, the only thing I can do is do the best that I can." And she did. And I'm very proud of her. She paid for her school, she paid for everything. And the only way she did that is because I told her, I says, "You live at home with me, you have no bills to pay, you save as much as you can." Our children shouldn't have to make decisions when it comes to things like that. So this is one of the reasons why I said to myself, this is my opportunity to give back to my community and Ontario. So thanks again.
Our fourth candidate is Sylvia Jones.
Thank you for coming out tonight, and thanks to the Dufferin Board of Trade for organizing this evening's forum. I've heard this election be called a change election, and I agree. You have an important choice to make, and I want to share the Ontario Progressive Conservative plan with you. I'm proud to stand with my leader, Doug Ford, and offer you a change in direction from the path the Wynne Liberals have been on for the past 15 years. A plan that would encourage businesses to invest in Ontario and allow our young people to find and keep jobs in our community. A plan that reduces your hydro bill so that businesses don't leave Ontario because of soaring hydro rates, and so our seniors can afford to stay in their own homes. A plan that understands that governments who spend more than they bring in are only leaving a heavier burden of debt to our children. I want to be part of a progressive Conservative government that focuses on improving the economic situation in Ontario so we all benefit. Let's begin with healthcare. It's the largest spending item in Ontario, but we need and can do better. Unfortunately, too many of our friends and neighbours are unable to find long-term care beds for their loved ones when they need them. According to the latest government statistics, the long-term care homes in Dufferin and Caledon all have waiting lists of a year or longer. It's wrong, and it needs to be fixed. Our plan includes building 30,000 new long-term care beds across Ontario, the first 15,000 within 5 years. Mental health is the often ignored part of our healthcare system. That needs to change. For 18 months, I studied the mental health system in Ontario, and we have a lot of gaps to fill. The youth looking for diagnosis and treatment, for seniors with dementia looking for respite and housing, and for families looking for treatment for their children with autism. Our plan includes an unprecedented $1.9 billion investment in mental health, addictions, and housing supports. When matched with the federal commitment of $1.9 billion, it is the largest investment in mental health and addiction services in Ontario's history. As I said, mental health is often the ignored part of our healthcare system, and that will change with the Progressive Conservative government. Number 2 is education. Between elementary, secondary, colleges, and universities, education is the second highest spending line in the provincial budget. And yet, our children are struggling. Math scores continue to decline. Only half of the students in grade 6 meet the provincial standard. A Progressive Conservative government will eliminate Discovery Math program and restore teaching methods that work. And the topic no one wants to talk about, debt and deficit. Paying the interest on Ontario's debt is the third highest expenditure of the Ontario government, higher than transportation, social services, environment. It's shocking, really. Interest on the debt costs us $12 billion a year, $1 billion a month to pay the interest on money already spent or wasted. And yet, even though interest on our debt is the third highest expenditure, the Liberals just passed a budget with a $11.7 billion deficit. This type of spending is simply not sustainable. Working with the Independent Auditor General and calling for an outside audit of government spending, a Progressive Conservative government will find the waste and inefficiencies, so your tax dollars are spent on people, not pet projects. Finally, energy costs. Ontario has the highest energy prices in North America, but it wasn't always so, and it doesn't have to remain that way. As I mentioned earlier, energy costs have been skyrocketing, particularly with Hydro One customers. There are many factors, but the subsidies we give to private wind turbine projects is, without a doubt, one of them. Paying the CEO of Hydro One $6 million a year is another. Doug Ford has sent a very clear message to the board of Hydro One that if they don't fire the Hydro One CEO, he'll get the job done. When the CEO of Hydro-Quebec gets paid less than $600,000, we can do better, and we need to do better for you. I've chosen to highlight only a few of the specific ideas we've presented in our plan to get Ontario's economy back on track. There is much more in our plan, which I hope you take the opportunity to review at ontariopc.ca. As I said, you have a very clear choice to make on June 7th. I hope you decide to re-elect me, Sylvia Jones. Thank you.
And our fifth candidate for his opening address is Bob Gordon-Aaron.
I'd like to start by thanking the Board of Trade for organizing this event like they did in Shelburne. I think they did an excellent job in Shelburne, and I'm sure they will here tonight. And also thanks to everyone who came out tonight. My name is Bob Gordon-Aaron, and I'm the Ontario Provincial Liberal candidate for Dufferin-Caledon. I am a retired firefighter, spending 32 years on the City of Brampton Fire Department. Before that, I served as a police officer in Port Credit and Peel Regional. In both professions, we see people in their most vulnerable state. They don't call us when things are good. We're called when there is nowhere else to turn. Spending time in the field is where you see policy at work. I saw each and every day that good social policy is good economic policy. That is why the government is investing in critical areas to ensure that everyone who is able can contribute to the economy in a meaningful way. Far too long, our family's income has defined our futures. Well, with tuition reform and investments in education in Ontario, not our family income, but rather our ability to work hard and will define our future. In a province with the lowest unemployment rate, highest level of direct foreign investment in North America, and an economy that has added almost 1 million jobs, Sylvia Jones tells you exactly what you want to hear. The PC deputy leader and the leader she embraces gives false hope that they can repackage policies from the 1980s and that they'll somehow help you and your family in the 21st century. It's simply not true. We need to look forward, not put our tractor in reverse. I'm not saying that the Liberals are perfect. I think we all know that the Premier has made some hard decisions. Some of these decisions have not been easy, and some of you may not agree with the government's direction. In 2003, hydro prices weren't the main issue because we had governments that spent decades letting the grid collapse. Schools were torn apart and infrastructure was in disrepair. Municipalities were struggling from downloading from Harris government. While the PCs have no plan and the NDP have poor costing platform, the Liberals have been clear about what we want to do. We want to invest in people. We want to invest in good preventative health care. We want to invest in growing the economy, and most of all, we want to invest in everyday families right across the province. That translates to real support for residents here in Dufferin-Caledon. Government-funded childcare means an average of $17,000 per child for families to spend on other important investments like Little League, swimming lessons, or simply supporting their families with healthier food. It means better health care and shorter wait times at hospitals like Headwaters here in Orangeville. It means better internet for small businesses and entrepreneurs. But it also means that helping seniors stay at home longer where they want to be and can get the right support. When elected your next MPP, I would champion these things and much more. I would fight for you tirelessly each and every day, just like I did while working double time as a farmer and a firefighter. We've been part of this community since 1981. Elsie and I have raised our 4 children here, and they are raising our grandchildren here. It is incredibly important for voters to be informed. They need to know what our parties stand for, who we're fighting for, and why the candidates want to run. They need to know what exactly we're proposing and how we are going to cost it. I am not a politician. I am a farmer. I have spent 35 years in this riding. I know every back road, every field, and every curve, and this is my home. It's the place I care about. That's why I'm running to be the next MPP. On June 7th, voters need to make an informed choice, and to do that, you need all the information. Thank you very much.
You've now had the opportunity to be introduced to each one of the candidates and their party's platform as well as their platform. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this evening of the forum, which is, of course, the questions. We will end up starting off with candidate number 1, proceed to number 5, and then we will end up subsequently altering the sequence just a little bit, but you'll follow along as we move along this evening. So our first question is as follows, and this will be answered by candidate number 1 and subsequently our other candidates. The question is, do you and your party support the current permanent protection afforded by the Greenbelt? And if elected, would your party maintain or alter its existing footprint? You have 2 minutes to answer the question.
The Libertarian Party has a lot of priorities. The Greenbelt is something I believe that should be kept. So I wouldn't be looking to reduce the Greenbelt. I wouldn't be looking to increase it. Instead, I would leave it as is for now, and we would be focusing on healthcare, balanced budgets, lower taxes. So the Greenbelt is a valuable area with farmland. We should keep it. We need it. But I wouldn't be looking to expand it out at all.
Thank you. Candidate number 2.
Well, I would say it's no secret the Green Party definitely supports the Greenbelt. The food and farm sector in the Greater Golden Horseshoe alone contributes $12.3 billion and 212,000 jobs to our economy. So food and water first is an essential pledge that all of you should take, and I've taken it. Yet we're losing, as I said, an average of 350 acres of farmland every day. So we actually need to be doing more. The Green Party has pressured the Liberals for years to fix our very broken water-taking rules that allow quarries to dig below the water table, and companies like Nestle that take 3.6 million liters of water per day on expired permits. That can't be happening. So the Greenbelt needs to be, that legislation needs to include looking at water-taking permits. The Green Party is actually calling for an expansion of the Greenbelt to protect those major river systems of the Greater Golden Horseshoe. We also need to be supporting farmers within the Greenbelt to store their carbon, as I said earlier. So there's a lot of things we need to do to make the Greenbelt work a little bit better to protect water. So I'm 100% in support. It's why we all live here. It's an incredibly important part of what our government does, and it needs to work with Ontario's growth plan as well. Thank you.
Candidate number 3.
The NDP party, definitely, yes. The Green Belt, it's again, I said it before, it's our legacy for our children. It should stay as the current legislation and to protect our Green Belt. Bringing in industry or builders into our Green Belt, it's a mistake. We don't need more concrete to be put on our Green Belt. It's beautiful out here. You know, tourists, Torontonians, drive through this area to go to Wasaga Beach, and they love the environment. As I said, it's clean air. That's what we need.
Okay, candidate number 4.
Thank you. Yes, I and the Progressive Conservative Party support the Green Belt. On the discussion about expanding the Green Belt, I would not encourage or support the expansion of the Green Belt without a full consultation with our municipalities, our conservation authorities, and the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Because frankly, about 6 months ago, after there had been a very thorough consolidated review of the lands that included the Niagara Escarpment and the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Liberal government came forward and said they were looking at expanding the Greenbelt. The problem was that the conservation authorities said, we already are doing this protection, and we thought that the consolidated review meant that the boundaries were the boundaries. So I would not encourage any expansion without a full review and consultation with our partners, which, as I say, are the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, the municipalities, and our conservation authorities. Thank you.
And candidate number 5.
Great. Thanks, Joe, for the question. You know, as a farmer, I guess that pretty well answers the question. We certainly do, the Liberal Party certainly does, and I sure do, support the Green Belt. You know, we only have 3 things to look at, and to me that's air, water, and food security. And to me that's, and it should be to everybody here, the only 3 things of life. You know, I look and I say to myself, kind of project. I have to be careful how far I project my years, but I look and say, in 20 years, we'll look back and say that this was probably one of the best things that the Liberal government ever did, was protect this Green Belt. And you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had Doug Ford say that he was going to pave it over, build houses on it, whatever. But now Sylvia says that she's for it, and he says he's for it because he took too much flack, so I guess he changed his mind. But you know, you can only do one thing. I have not much trust in a person that says something that strong, and people that are in the PC party are going to follow him. That's the way it works. And he said he was going to pave it over, and that's good enough for me. As far as I'm concerned, I do not trust anything he says about the Green Belt after that. Thank you.
Moving to question number 2, as we had several submissions from the region, and as we ended up echoing earlier, we had an elections forum committee that reviewed and tried to compile all the questions under the 4 pillars of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and, of course, the Dufferin Board of Trade. This question will be posed to candidate number 2, Laura Campbell, and the rest of the candidates, but subsequently starting with Laura. What will you and your party do to ensure that social assistance programs that are provided by the Ministry of Community and Social Services or by organizations funded by the ministry receive adequate funding so that those relying on social assistance are able to maintain a basic standard of living and access to the programs that they need?
I actually had a question from somebody privately over our Riding Association Facebook page about this not too long ago. We need more social assistance. The Liberal government, and credit here, brought in the basic income pilot project, which was great. However, we can't, it was good. But we can't be hiding behind that and say, oh, look at what we did. We had a basic income pilot. We have data from that pilot project now. I'm sure they have great data on it. We need to bring in a basic income guarantee. This cuts red tape for families. When you have lost a loved one or you are in an addictions crisis, you have a mental health crisis, or you have a child with a disability, getting the social assistance you need, in particular getting through sort of the red tape around that, is just another added stress that people don't need. We know that it'll actually cost less to put in place a basic income guarantee. The Green Party of Ontario has plans for how to raise revenue so that we can fund this across the board. It's actually, the Libertarians would like it. It means less government, and it means that people get the funding that they need. But in the meantime, while we were rolling that out, we need to immediately increase payments through the existing systems like Ontario Works. So the Green Party of Ontario is advocating for a basic income guarantee.
Candidate number 3, your response, please.
Social assistance. As I previously said, a lot of our social assistance programs have been either cut or dismantled, and the NDP believe, again, to assist those who need help. We want to ensure that all families can afford to live, to move on each day, day-to-day life, without struggles, without thinking about where am I going, what am I going to do, or where am I going to get funds to pay my bills. The NDP is ensuring that families can get those social assistance to ensure affordability and be able to live a normal, healthy, happy life. So without concerns, again, a lot of times, especially with mental illness, we need that social assistance to help our young people especially. So one of the things that the NDP would advocate definitely on social assistance for all families that needs it.
Thank you. Candidate number 4.
Thank you. So the first thing that Ontario Progressive Conservative government would do would remove provincial income taxes for everyone earning under $30,000 a year. I have to give a shout out to the Dufferin County Social Services. They are excellent, committed individuals who are doing the work that many of us don't see and don't understand. I know from meeting with them that they have situation tables where they come together, all of the various agencies, without government funding, I might add, And they bring together that situation table because they want all the experts in the room to understand and bring forward the solutions that are for the individual. That's what we do so well in Dufferin County, maybe because we're smaller, I don't know. I'm just happy that it's happening. So as I say, the Progressive Conservatives would eliminate provincial income tax for anyone earning under $30,000 a year, and that is going to make a big difference in the lives of people who are struggling in our community. Thank you.
Candidate number 5.
Okay, thanks. Well, if I could answer Sylvia's last comment there, $30,000 with no tax, actually you're better off making $15 an hour because you're good for $800 more than paying no tax. So I don't quite buy that. You know, I call community care here in the riding probably, you know, I hate making a list because everybody thinks when you put the first words, like the first issue, like community care, that everybody thinks, well, Bob must think community care is number 1. No, there's quite a few number 1 items actually. Community care is just what we're talking about today. Community care to me is right from hospitals right down to the social services that create health care to people. For example, we'll just use a few, Meals on Wheels, hospice, food bank, telecheck, and there's many of them, and I've visited every one of them, and there's no doubt that there's a lot of room to improve. Another one is home care. I believe home care for the elderly. I think the elderly should have a choice to be able to live in their own homes. And also that choice is also a lot to do with family as well. I mean, don't forget elderly people usually have children. So by having them and have the services coming into their homes certainly is a really good choice for the family as well as the elderly. We have OHIP Plus. 1.2 million children under 25 have actually had free prescriptions of 3.5 free prescriptions. 3.5 million free prescriptions. And of course, we brought out, is coming out is the prescriptions for elderly over 65 will also be free.
Thank you. And candidate number 1, your response, please.
We do need a social safety net, but what you need to ask yourself is, why do we need it? Who do we need it for? Well, there are going to be some people who are unable to work because of physical disability and mental disability. They need our help. But there are going to be lots of people who are just not able to make ends meet because they don't have a job, or if they have a job, it's not a high-paying job. What's the best way to help those people? Do we just give them money, or would it be better to give them a job, a high-paying job? So the Libertarians have a platform where we're saying we should eliminate corporate income tax. And you say, well, what's that going to do? We're going to have more businesses coming from the US, from other provinces, setting up shop here in Ontario. We're going to get high-tech jobs, high-paying jobs, and we're still going to get tax revenue from the government, for the government, from the increased income taxes, personal taxes we'll be receiving from those new employees at those higher paying jobs. To me, that's a better approach than just throwing out more and more money, especially when we don't have a balanced budget. We don't have the money right now, so the only way we can invest more is to borrow more. Does that make more sense? No. So what we need to do is we need to grow the economy, make sure everybody's got a job, while we look after the people who truly do need our help.
Thank you. For those of you that may have arrived a little late, this is the Dufferin Board of Trade's provincial election forum for 2018, being broadcast on Rogers Television, and we thank all of those that are in attendance tonight. And we do have a spectrum of people from the community, from Dufferin-Caledon, and I know that many of the questions are certainly zeroing on some of the different things that matter to you. This next question will be posed to candidate number 3, and then subsequently through the roster of candidates we have. The question is as follows. Stable, sustainable funding for medium-sized hospitals is critical for the growing needs of our communities. What will you and your party do to improve the funding formula to ensure adequate and stable funding for medium-sized hospitals like the Headwaters Healthcare Centre?
The NDP has a plan, platform that we can't even, sorry. 19 has pledged $19 billion over 10 years for hospitals, 2,000 new beds, 15,000 long-term care beds, more hospital staff and shorter wait time standard of care. We don't have hospitals where there's too many empty beds above. Emergency rooms are filled with beds in hallways. So we're going to put in $475 billion in universal health care, covering 125 new drugs and take-home cancer medication, money for home care and midwives, $670,000 a year dental insurance for full and part-time low-income to no pension seniors. So there's families out there that can't afford dental. There's seniors who have to make choices between, do I eat or do I take my medication? So the NDP has put a platform out there for free pharmacare and dental for all families, no matter income or work experience.
Thank you. Feel free. Candidate number 4, your response, please.
Thank you. So specifically in answer to the question, yes, medium-sized hospital formulas must be reworked. We've seen with the small hospitals that the government made some changes very quickly to increase their funding because they realized the funding model wasn't working. We need to have that same discussion with the medium-sized hospitals, and actually before the legislature rose for the election, a progressive conservative MPP had brought forward a motion to literally call for a review and update of the funding for medium-sized hospitals. You know, I think that at some point, governments have to start listening to the experts. And we have excellent physicians, nurses, front care professionals who are working at Headwaters, who are working in our hospitals. And we need to start listening to them and understand where the challenges are. Last week I did a roundtable with some of the registered nurses at Headwaters, and the feedback that they provide is so valuable because it's happening now. They're engaged, they see where the challenges are. I'm very pleased that my leader, Doug Ford, has already tasked Dr. Reuben Devlin to bring together those medical experts and start bringing forward ideas that work for our hospitals, not for the Ministry of Health, for our hospitals. Thank you.
Candidate 5, your response, please.
Thanks, Joe. Well, about 3 weeks ago, I met with the CEO of Headwaters earlier this year. There is no question that medium-sized hospitals like ours need the right kind of support. I think that means finding the best way to make the patient experience better and support healthcare professionals as well across the spectrum. Headwaters received just over $42 million in operating dollars in 17-18, an increase of nearly 850,000. But you know, I said to the CEO that right now and she knows all these figures. In fact, actually, I think she's in the crowd tonight. It's 43% of the budget, and we all know that we need health care, every one of us. Our family has needed quite a bit lately in the last six years, and it is nothing, as far as I'm concerned, but the best. And I mean, here in this riding, as well as the Toronto hospitals and Newmarket, It is nothing but the best. But we need to do better, and we certainly need to maybe look at the funding and go from there. But when you look at Doug Ford's plan, no, I'm sorry, he doesn't have a plan. So when you look what he's talking about and see the budgets that are out there, there is only 2 budgets. I better hurry up here, the yellow light's on. He's only got 2 budgets to take the money out of, and that's education and hospitals. And the last time I think there was an awful pile of nurses went to Texas, and I also think there was an awful pile of unemployed teachers. I don't believe for a minute, not a minute, that we can afford to get down that way. We need to keep the educators we have. That's the whole key to our Ontario economy is education, and the next one is health care. So I don't agree with anything that he says.
Okay. Candidate number 1, your response, please.
The problems in healthcare can't be solved with money alone. The government, and we've had PC governments, we've had Liberal governments, we've had NDP governments, they've all been in charge. Under any of those governments, have we had better wait care times? No. Have we had cheaper health care? No. Have we had better service? No. So when they're here telling you that they have a solution, we've tried their solutions and they didn't work. It's time for something new. So the Libertarians would keep the publicly funded system. We need a publicly funded system so that nobody is going to be refused health care because of how much money they have in their pocket. But at the same time, Canada is one of 3 countries, I believe. There's Canada, North Korea, and Cuba, where it's illegal to get health care from a private system. In Europe, they have both. Why don't we have the same choice? Why is it a criminal activity to try and get help, medical help for your friends or your family to buy private insurance? We want the public system, but we want the choice of going on a private system as well. We want the money kept here in Ontario. Why would we want to be sending people to the US where we're paying US doctors, US nurses, US healthcare technicians? That money should be spent right here, and those patients should be treated right here at home. Why should they have to wait for care that they could be getting next week or the week after? It doesn't make any sense. It's not compassionate to force people to wait month after month, or in some cases up to a year to see a specialist. We need a change. We've heard all the other solutions. We've tried all the other solutions. They didn't work. It's not just a funding issue. It's a structural issue.
And candidate number 2, your response, please.
Okay, I've heard a lot of good things here at this table because the majority of us have agreed with the experts that we actually do need more funding for medium-sized hospitals. I also met with the CEO of Headwaters, and funding was the major thing. But it's not just funding. We need to take an integrative approach to healthcare. Obviously, the Greens in our platform, we're talking about more preventative care, but we also need a better strategy to use the existing resources in home care, long-term care, nurse-led practitioner clinics, primary care, and community care. But another challenge is that there's 12,000 children on a wait list for mental health services right now. And where are many of them waiting? At our medium-sized hospitals. So our beds are actually filled with people who can't get services outside of the hospital that they need. So really it's about funding, but it's also about being creative and understanding that we need to fund other structures that are in place so that we can have reduced wait times. So for instance, when my kid has an ear infection, I can see my family doctor promptly so that I can get antibiotics and not have to go to an emergency room. Doug Ford is talking about how he's going to make all this happen with magic money. But hey, guess what? The experts did speak. In 2012, the Drummond report pointed out where we could be more efficient. I think the Green Party is recommending that we follow those recommendations. So I hope he reads that report if he knows what it is. Thank you.
Well, so far this evening, we've gone through 3 questions, and we are motoring along, and it's very interesting, as I made reference to this earlier, how we have a variety of members of our community from all different walks of life and professions, and in this case, our next question may target directly those that are connected to the education field. So candidate number 4, you'll be the first one to respond to this. With public education receiving a large percentage of the provincial budget, how will you and your party ensure the continual improvement of the public education system overall with a focus on student performance for money spent?
Thank you. Absolutely. In my opening remarks, I made reference to the fact that education with our primary, elementary, secondary, college, and university is the second highest expenditure of the provincial government. We need to get it right. We need to get it right for our children. Again, I will talk about math. When 50% of Ontario grade 6 students cannot reach the provincial standards for math, we have a problem. So we have to look at that and actually make changes. That's why we're going to scrap the Discovery Math program. It's clearly not working for the majority of our students, and we need to go back to what has been working historically, which is a more traditional method of teaching math. We need to get back to the basics. You know, I just met with the manufacturer this morning, and their second highest concern that they raised with me after the raising of hydro rates was access to good employees. So if we don't solve it at the college university level, then we're not doing our children any favors, and we're certainly not doing our employers any favors. We have to make sure that the kids are being taught and they can accept it and they can understand it, and then we'll move into actually providing the skills that we need for the next generation. I mean, we've heard it tonight from the panel. There are different jobs available. People are constantly going to have to upgrade in this new economy, and if we have young people and employees who aren't able or aren't willing to, we have a problem as a government and we have a problem as a society. That's what we're going to do in the education system. Thank you.
Candidate number 5, your response.
Thanks, Joe. Due to our Ontario Liberal government's investments, Ontario's education system is definitely one of the best in the world. This means an investment of $24.5 billion, or a $3.5 billion increase since 2013. And you know, we talk, Sylvia just said about the poor, poor schools, but here's some stats. It's thanks to these investments that our high school graduates rates have risen to 86.5%. That's 18% under our government. And it's also due to the great educators that I believe that we have. You also look at programs like, for example, tuition. We have right now this year over 235,000 college university students that are on free tuition. That to me is forward thinking, and why I say that is this. If we can keep educating people like we are doing right now in Ontario, it's nothing but good for this province, because they go into school 1 year and they come out either in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and they're nothing but a great asset to this whole industry. We have 10,000 single mothers that have enrolled back to school, which I think is fantastic. They'll be able to come out and get good jobs, support themselves and their families. So I have nothing but good to say about our education system, and thank you.
Candidate number 1.
Well, I think stats and numbers are good when you're talking about people in general, but when it's your child who's not doing well in school, you want a solution for the individual. You don't care what the average is. You want help for your own child. So the libertarian plan is to allow you to move from school to school. If there's a better school, if a school's not doing well in an area, let your child go to a different school. Let them be taught by teachers teaching with different methods. Give them a choice. Don't sit them with one school where they can't get out, where they're stuck with the same teachers and the same teaching methods. Give them the opportunity to move to what's better. What we're going to find is those schools that get more students will get more funding because we're going to attach the funding to the students. So what we're going to end up with are centers of excellence. We're going to have schools that are getting more funding, more students because they're doing well. It's attached to the results, not the hopes, not the promises, the results. So on top of that, I think if students are learning a second language, I think they ought to be learning a computer language. So, I mean, French is great if you're going to be going for a government job, but if you want to get a high-paying job, if you want a high-tech job, you're better off with a computer language, and I think we should be reinforcing that in our schools. I also believe we should be promoting trades and trade colleges. So it's not just about regular academics. It's about getting people ready for a job and a career. And there's nothing wrong with the trades. They're high-paid jobs, they're high-skilled jobs, but I think a lot of people just push them to the side. So I think we should be focusing on those areas.
Candidate number 2, your response, please.
I'm going to speak from the heart here and also speak to all the other parents out there who have young kids in kindergarten classrooms. I actually thought that what the Liberals did was good. It's actually a relief for a lot of parents to get their young ones into kindergarten earlier. And I know that all of the major parties are talking about more affordable childcare, but so that was a step in the right direction. But really, we need to be doing more, right? Class sizes they're too large. Children aren't learning well, they are stressed out. Teachers and education workers, there's not enough of them, so they need more support. The reality is we need to figure out a way to pay for it responsibly. One of the great ways or things that have been advocated by education workers themselves is, for instance, to eliminate EQAO assessments. We could actually, that $30 million, between 16 to 30 million, we could use to invest in special education. We need more special education. We actually need more education for kids with learning specialities after they leave high school. We really need to be supporting students. That means we need smaller class sizes. We also need to be listening to the experts. Okay, so that means we're not just going to go scrap curriculum that, we've spent 10 years developing. It's actually very expensive to overhaul curriculum, and these new curriculum that have been developed, whether on sex ed or on math, they have consulted with the experts, so I think it's really irresponsible to just be talking about scrapping curriculum.
And candidate number 3, your response, please.
Education is really important. Schools are really important for our children. As I said previously, elementary schools, kindergarten, especially, there are too many children in one class. I agree with that. The NDP wants to focus on education, and we're committed to create 27,000 new paid student work placements. One of the things that you mentioned before, the EQA, that one of the things that we've seen is that teachers are teaching towards the testing, not really focusing on what our kids are missing out. They're the ones that need to know what they're failing at, not working towards what the test is expecting them to do. So I always said, growing up, we had testing. We do a work program, and you're tested on your knowledge of what you're taught. And today, with the testing that we do, is we basically teach our children towards those testing, and that does not give us an idea of what our children are missing out on or what more do they need to learn. Building on through Jobs and Prosperity Fund, we will double Ontario's Career Kickstart program. So Ontario's colleges and universities can create new work-integrated learning opportunities. Innovators and conduct the world-class research and development that sows the seeds of innovation. These are the platforms that the NDP are looking at. We're advocating that we scrap those EQA testing as well. It doesn't really, I don't think it really helps our kids.
Thank you. As we're moving along with the forum this evening, again, for those of you that are on our live audience, you certainly know who our candidates are. For those that are watching on Rogers Television, we'd like to reintroduce our candidates from left to right, and they include Jeff Harris of the Ontario Libertarian Party. We also have Laura Campbell, the Ontario Green Party. We have Andrea Malarkey, the Ontario New Democratic Party, Sylvia Jones, the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party, and Bob Gordon-Eyre, the Ontario Liberal Party. Moving on to our next question. This will be opposed to candidate number 5 in our sequence this evening. And if necessary, I will repeat the question to any candidate who requires me to do so. The question is as follows. The inadequate road and bridge infrastructure in rural Ontario provides considerable transportation challenges for rural communities and agribusiness. How will you invest in rural transportation infrastructure to ensure agribusiness can transport farm equipment and goods to market?
Thank you. Well, there's no doubt that it is a challenge. We've pulled farm produce down the road for quite 40 years. Bridges are not wide enough with larger equipment that we have now. So you look back though, and today, I believe it was today or yesterday, excuse me, today or yesterday, Mr. Ford announced that he was going to increase the risk management program, which I was actually chair of at one time. It's a $100 million program, and he was going to raise it. Well, I can tell you right now that that is such a small part of rural Ontario, it's hardly worth talking about. We need money into bridges, there's no doubt about it, roads, culverts, drainage, tile draining, and the money is there. We need to look at probably putting even more money into it, but we need help from municipalities, and it doesn't sound like we're going to get that either, because Mr. Ford says he's going to look at the books of every municipality in this province. And for efficiencies, well, I've had mayors tell me that that's nothing but an insult as far as they're concerned. And I don't see it looking at it as an efficiency. I look at it from him probably taking money back out of the municipalities. So I think we have to protect what we have.
Candidate number 1, your response, please.
I think we should be funding roads and bridges. We need them to get our products out to market. We need them to get our workers to their jobs. So it's important. But what I wonder is how much money is being wasted on consultations, consultants, regulations. How is it that it takes not just 1 year or 2 years to get a highway approved, but 4, 5, 10 years? How much money is spent when we could be having people out paving the roads? We could have people out driving on those roads. Sure, we need to have consultations. Building a road or a bridge is a complicated project. It needs environmental reviews, but there's no way that it should be taking 5 or 10 years to do those reviews. We need to streamline the process so that we can actually get the roads built and not spend all our time just planning on the roads of the future.
Thank you. Candidate number 2, your response, please.
So yeah, rural infrastructure development is very important because, of course, we are talking about safety. And if any of you are from Shelburne, you know that this work is going on right now, and some may be frustrated when you listen to Country 105 and they're talking about traffic on Highway 10, a very small stretch. So but it's very important. Infrastructure development, of course, creates jobs. But we need to also be talking about how much it actually costs Canadians when you have congestion delays. So it's not just rural communities, but now it is also rural communities, right? It's $650 million per year is what it costs. So we actually need to be funding infrastructure and, of course, crucially transit, so that less people are driving individual cars. We need more electric buses taking people between different cities. We need to electrify our entire transit system, but that, at least needs to be part of the conversation. And you know what? The Green Party is the only party talking about how we were going to be funding these infrastructure investments. We need things like dedicated revenue tools that are fair and progressive. So that means parking levies and, yes, road tolls and congestion charges. We're going to be honest. That's where we can raise the money to make the necessary investments in rural infrastructure, like roads and bridges, without plunging the province into further debt. We all need to pay for this in a responsible way.
Candidate number 3.
Rural transportation. This is one of the biggest topics I've been hearing out there. A lot of people are asking, saying that there's not enough public transit. There's not enough in and out. One of the things that, especially the young people, a good example, if you're in Bolton, you're trapped for the weekend if you don't have a vehicle. You're stuck there for the weekend. Because why? There's no buses running through Bolton on a weekend. So for rural transportation, it's going to cost, right now they're talking about railways and trains, and that's not going to come into play till what, 2041, 2031? By that time, most of our kids will say, that's enough, I'm out of here, right? So I say, more public transit for now until all this research and programs for rails and other rural transportation come into play. We can add more routes for go buses through our communities. They're riding clean air, right?
Thank you. And candidate number 4, your response, please.
Thank you. So the question tapped on the road and bridge infrastructure. In Ontario today, when you fill up your gas, there is a portion of the provincial gas tax that goes to municipalities. But it only goes to municipalities that have a bus system, which is one, by the way, in Dufferin-Caledon. So Orangeville gets a very small amount of money from the provincial government because they have urban buses. But even with that percentage, they are only allowed to use it on capital, not on actually operating the transit system. We have to do a better job and acknowledge that in the vast majority of Dufferin-Caledon, our roads and bridges are our public transportation system. One of the things that I've been pushing the government to do is currently every municipality, 444 municipalities across Ontario, have to submit asset management plans to the government. And that asset management plan really is an assessment that the municipality has done that says, this is where our municipal infrastructure, our roads, our bridges are in a state of repair or disrepair. If the two provincial governments, agencies, would actually talk and compare those asset management plans, you could fund the municipalities that desperately need the bridges repaired, and you could ensure that the money that the provincial government is sharing with our municipal partners is going to the people and the individuals who need it so that we can keep our bridges open and our roads drivable. Thank you.
And candidate number 5, please. We've already gone to 5.
I actually started it, I think.
I apologize.
That's okay. Do you want me to do it again?
No.
I'd be happy to.
I was just wanting to make sure that you were watching and listening
After all those
too.
answers, I'd be happy to.
I'm glad that everybody's certainly keeping in tune to what's going on as much as I am right now. Good. Next question will be posed to our first candidate. And this one is actually tied somewhat to the infrastructure. One that, surprisingly, we're living in a community that is certainly growing substantially. For those of us who've been part of this community for a long time, there's a community just north of Orangeville, Shelburne, that was declared one of the fastest growing towns or communities in the province. So this is a question that is somewhat specific to the area, but candidate number 1, the question is as follows, and we will subsequently proceed to candidate number 5 on this one. And I got that right. Question is, how would you address the problem of the lights at Highway 124 in Shelburne and Highway 10 and 89? These intersections require an advanced green and the MTO will not allow it. In addition, would you advocate for a bypass to address the issue of the amount of heavy traffic through downtown Shelburne?
Yeah, I saw actually a tweet recently from the mayor of Shelburne addressing that exact issue. And to me, I can't figure out for the life of me why the Ontario government wouldn't be funding that light. I'm a libertarian candidate. I want small government. I want to keep our budgets, as streamlined as possible. But there are areas where the government does need to spend money. And it doesn't seem to me that an advanced green light is a big issue. So if it is, we've got a bigger problem, that we've got more government regulations and red tape that are slowing down the approval process. It just makes no sense at all. So that's something that I would certainly approve right away.
Candidate number 2, your response.
I agree with Jeff. This is obviously something that can be done, and I'm not an expert on how much it would cost to put in an advanced green light, but I suspect it's not astronomical. But somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is a place where provinces or different parties within the province can work together to make sure that municipalities are getting the support they need to bring in place those kind of common sense solutions that make our roads and our communities safer. We know that that intersection is pretty sketchy, and I think that it would be very, very important to talk to the experts about, is an advanced green the answer, or is perhaps a roundabout the answer? I don't know. I know there are some roundabouts in Bolton, and there is a lot of truck traffic in Bolton, and it seems like it's working pretty well there. So I'm just throwing that out there, but certainly if the experts have said they need that advanced green light, I can't for the life of me understand why it hasn't been done. And certainly myself as an MPP, if I were elected, would work to make that happen very quickly, because there's a school right there. There is a lot of traffic, and it's really crucial that that gets done.
Thank you. Candidate number 3.
I guess I would have to agree with everything Laura just said.
Candidate number 4, your response.
Thank you. So this is an issue that I've been working very actively with the mayor and the council in Shelburne. I think the most frustrating part for me was when I met with the Minister of Transportation, and he said that MTO needs to do the traffic counts to justify the turning lane. And I said, well, good news, Minister, I can save you some money because the County of Dufferin has already done the traffic counts, and they show that an advanced green is absolutely justified at that intersection. And he went away and he came back and he went, no, I need to do my own traffic counts. So we're going to have to do that over the next 6 months. And I said, I just offered you a solution that was going to save your ministry money. And if you can't trust your partner, the County of Dufferin, that the numbers that they have compiled with their traffic counts aren't accurate, then that doesn't put a lot of faith in the municipal leaders and me as a member of Provincial Parliament representing the area. It speaks to this them and us mentality that sometimes happens at Queen's Park and is very, very frustrating. There is a new CEO up at the county, at the town of Shelburne, and the first time we met, she said, I really, really appreciate the advocacy that you're doing on the advanced green, but I also want to talk about long-term solutions. So we need to listen to our partners. Frankly, they are there on the job every day listening to their constituents, and the municipalities are the experts when it comes to those types of projects. So we need to do a better job listening to them. Thank you.
And candidate number 5, your response, please.
Thanks, Joe. So, you know, this is, I call this a no-brainer. You know, we just go to Shelburne pretty well any day, and especially on the weekends. There's no doubt it needs something done there. But, you know, I also think that, I mean, Sylvia just said that, you know, she's been working hard at this and everything, but it doesn't sound to me like she's getting the attention that maybe is needed here from the Minister of Transport or whoever she has to get it from. I think building relationships.
She's our rep. She should be fighting for it.
Continue, please. So, I guess we need to be building relationships. We need to be building better relationships with ministers. And to me, you look at a flashing light, well, I think that we need to go maybe a couple of steps farther than that. Shelburne has needed a bypass for many years, but also every year you put this off, the price escalates huge, and the building that Shelburne has been doing, where would the bypass go? Well, I'm certainly not the expert to tell you where the bypass would go, but there's no doubt to me that it needs a bypass, never mind a flashing light. Thank you. As we're proceeding through this evening, surprisingly, this will be our last official question posed to the candidates, and then we will end up having the opportunity for the candidates to provide their closing statements. So this will be posed to candidate number 2. I've got the sequence back on track. Question is as follows. Ontario's debt will rise by 21% in the next 3 years due to interest charges alone, with no existing plans to begin debt repayment. If elected, what would you and your party do to achieve long-term fiscal prudence and regain our status as an economic leader in Canada and a reliable investment destination globally? Candidate number 2.
I really like this question because the Green Party of Ontario has to work 5 times as hard as the other major parties to show that we have a fully costed platform and that we understand how much it's going to cost for the things that we need. All of the parties are talking about all of the things they're going to give us, and we need those things, and I'm glad they're talking about those things. But there are some hard decisions they also have to make when one of them ends up governing, and that is, how are we going to pay for it? One of the things that the Green Party is advocating is that we say no to a $13 billion upgrade of decaying nuclear reactors in Darlington. $13 billion. The costs will be passed off onto consumers, absolutely, onto my children. The other thing, of course, is that our resource extracting companies, whether it's mining, forestry, or water, pay only a 1% royalty rate, as opposed to, for instance, Saskatchewan pays, they have to pay 10%. This is a revenue stream that we are not taking advantage of. You know, I'm not saying, you know, the Green Party is saying, let's raise it to 10%, but at least let's start having a conversation about it. Let's start having a conversation about who is going to be paying for the things that we need. If you're taking something from Ontario, it means you have to give back. So resource extraction royalty rates, right there. And absolutely, we need to be more efficient, but we cannot say efficiency and what we're really meaning is cuts. So we need to deal with the debt by taxing polluters, because the climate crisis is here and we haven't talked about it tonight, but I'm really worried about it and I hope many of you are as well. So a carbon fee and dividend is the way forward. It's the most progressive way. Thank you so much.
Candidate number 3, your response.
Okay. And an NDP government will address a decade-long trend of funding cuts and freezes to services. We will do this by addressing the sustainability in which we fund these services, close loopholes, and end corporate income tax giveaways. Ask the wealthiest Ontarians to contribute more and improve the integrity of Ontario's tax collection system. Our plan is one that focuses on undoing years of underfunding while addressing our fiscal challenges as a province in a sustainable and responsible manner that works for all Ontarians. Andrea Howarth and the NDP have based our fiscal plan on 4 principles. We will make investments that make life better for everyone. We will protect middle-class families from tax hikes and fee increases. We will ensure the wealthiest people and most profitable businesses pay their fair share for the services that make their success possible. We will make sure our investment in services is financially sustainable, so we stop the decades-long pattern of cuts and funding freezes. Here are a couple of the concrete actions that we've in our fiscal plan. We will only count on the revenues we know we can rely on. We will end our corporate income tax giveaway, returning the tax rate on profits to 13% in a fair manner that allows businesses to plan. So we will close the loophole and make sure that we try to at least balance the books.
Thank you. Candidate number 4, please.
Thank you. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, nobody likes to talk about debt and deficit. We don't want to talk about it in our personal lives, and we certainly don't want to talk about it in our government lives. But in less than 4 years, Ontario's debt is going to reach $400 billion. It's not sustainable. And to add insult to injury, in the last 15 years, under Ontario Liberal rule, not a single dime has been paid down on the debt in the province of Ontario. Think about that, not a dime. We have to, I'll point to the Auditor General because her statement really struck with me. And a couple of years ago, in her annual report, the Auditor General said, if the Government of Ontario does not start dealing with their debt problem, we will shrink out the ability for Ontario government to provide the services that Ontario residents deserve and respect. When the independent Auditor General is telling the government of the day that you're going to have to deal with this debt, otherwise you will not have the money to provide for education and health care, that sounds like a pretty dire warning to me. We have to get to a stage where governments appreciate and understand that the job creators in Ontario are not government. The job creators in Ontario are businesses. So we're going to actually deal with that with decreasing the corporate tax rate by 1% and decreasing the small business tax rate, which most of us understand is the largest job creator, we're decreasing their tax rate by 8.7%. Let's actually put policies and legislation in Ontario that encourage people to set up businesses and expand their businesses here. Thank you.
Candidate number 5, your response, please.
Thank you, Joe. We've made deliberate choice. We've made a deliberate choice to invest in care, health care, child care, senior care. As a result, we will have a small deficit, less than 1% of GDP. We did the hard work to bring the provincial province back to balance, but right now we need to invest in care. We've chosen to invest in infrastructure, health care, education, and other important services that the people of this province rely on and want. We're making prescription drugs free for children and youth and for seniors. We've invested in free tuition, and we're investing in childcare. Ontario Liberals have always stood up to protect vital government services. We've made the largest investment in public infrastructure in the province's history, more than $190 billion over 13 years. This includes investments in roads, bridges, highways, hospitals, and schools. Thank you.
And candidate number 1, your response to the question, please.
The government doesn't invest money, it spends money. If it invested money, we wouldn't have a $300 billion debt. When politicians say invest, voters might be under the mistaken impression that it's okay if we borrow some money now because we'll pay it off later with our investment earnings. Well, that's just not true. We're going to spend the money this year, we're going to spend the money next year, and we're going to continue to borrow more and more money. That's why we don't have a balanced budget. Currently, in Ontario, we spend more on interest payments to bankers and bondholders than we do for secondary education. Does that make any sense? We borrow new money to pay the interest on old money that we previously borrowed. That's not sustainable. The libertarian approach would be to balance the budget. Balancing a budget is a mathematical exercise. It's not hard. The problem is we don't have anybody with political will to do it. So the libertarian approach would be to flip it in a reverse. So right now, nobody wants to talk about cuts. So instead of talking about cuts, why don't we start with $0 budgeting? What that means is we start with nothing funded and we add. We say, okay, we need healthcare, we need the police services, we need doctors or teachers. Let's fund that until we reach the revenue line. We have no more revenue. At that point, we all have to decide together what should be funded. If we want to put something else in, then we have to take something else out or show how it can be done more efficiently. That way we're all in it together and it's not about cuts.
Thank you. Now, as we're coming to a close to tonight's forum, I'd just like to remind everyone in the audience and those that are watching on Rogers Television, in addition to tonight's forum, each of the 5 candidates tonight met with the Dufferin Board of Trade to discuss our Vote Prosperity election platform and submitted answers to questions pertaining to the platform priorities. You can certainly find their responses on the Dufferin Board of Trade website. And during the election campaign, the Ontario Chamber Network will continue to call on the political parties and candidates to adopt the Vote Prosperity election priorities. The priorities and the recommendations, again, are found on the Dufferin Board of Trade website as well as the Ontario Chamber of Commerce website. So this is the opportunity for our candidates to provide their closing statements. As was the case with the sequence that was chosen prior to tonight's forum, we will start with candidate number 1 and subsequently move to candidate number 5 as part of their closing statements. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to provide their closing remarks. And again, we also respect the fact that the candidates themselves will end up noticing our timing itself. So candidate number 1, Jeff Harris, your closing remarks, please.
Okay, I'll keep this short. I think this election shouldn't be about political parties. It should be about policies and promises. In some cases, the big parties want to scare you into voting for them because they'll say you'll split the vote or you're wasting a vote. Well, a wasted vote is when you vote for someone who doesn't support the policies that you want. A wasted vote is when you vote for a politician you don't trust to follow through on the promises that they've made to you. That's why this June, I'm asking voters to be bold and vote Libertarian.
Candidate number 2, Laura Campbell.
Thank you. I would say I agree with Jeff. Do not vote strategically. I've done it in the past and it's burned me. You have to vote with your conscience. The only wasted vote is the vote you don't believe in. We can see that parties, our major parties, spend more time battling each other than they do actually coming up with solutions to our problems. We need to be doing politics differently. At my business, I would never be bickering with my workers or my partner, who also happens to be my husband, constantly. We do have disagreements about how things are run, but we actually have to come up with a solution so that we can move forward. Doing politics differently means ending the political games and working together to come up with solutions. It means talking about the climate crisis. It means talking about the opportunities we have for a brand new economy. The Greens are building a bridge to the future. Where is my son going to work? Hopefully in clean tech manufacturing. We need to resurrect the manufacturing sector, and it's a win-win. By helping the environment, we can actually create jobs. This is my vision. This is the vision of the Green Party of Ontario. If I wanted to just be a politician for a politician's sake, I would not be running with this party. But I believe in our core vision. I believe in the work of our leader, Mike Schreiner. I'm not worried about what he's going to say because I agree with everything he says. So we need to be helping small businesses. They are the backbone of our economy. Currently, we have two parties of big business, one party of no business. Sorry, Andrea. We need a party for small business. This is really the ethical route. It keeps jobs locally, and it stimulates certainly our economy province-wide. I would also be a great representative for you, as you know, because the Green Party of Ontario does not whip votes. I will vote for what my constituency needs. This is crucial. Okay, so I'm not going to vote against you unless I'm voting for my conscience. Okay, so you have the power to vote for change. You really do, you have the power. So on June 7th, please vote for me, Laura Campbell. Vote for the Green Party. Thank you.
Candidate number 3.
I'll just go with a little story. One of the reasons why I've decided to do this, it was thinking back when I first started having my babies. We had to make a decision, my husband and I, back then, about daycare and how are we going to go ahead with. Am I going to go back to work? Are we going to both work and put our children into daycare? And we had to make a decision. We looked at it and we said, if I go back to work, I'm basically paying the daycare for my child with my salary. And that made no sense. Somebody else is bringing my child up. I'm going to be spending a lot of time traveling. I'm going to be spending a lot of time trying to take what I earn to pay out for somebody else to watch my child. So we made a tough decision. I'll stay home and I'll take care of my little one. You work. We struggled, was one salary, but I decided, you know what? I applied and had a little home daycare with my kids, so that helped. So I was a little bit of a business. That's good. Right? And I had 5 kids, including my own. And that's the way we sort of survived. It was a survival. So we survived with me doing little extra work. I had to work 3-4 jobs at one point just to sustain my family, just for supporting my family. So the NDP is about families, struggling families. I lived that family life. I went through the steps. When I had to go back to school, those are the reasons I waited until my kids were all grown up for me to go back to school, and then finally find a career that I enjoy later on in life, but I found it. And this is why I'm trying to do this right now. It's just be a part of understanding the families and the day-to-day struggles that all families go through. Not all of them, but some of them. And at the end of the day, the NDP is fighting. They are the voice for those families. And that's why you should really think, or keep us in mind at least, right, to vote NDP.
Candidate number 4, please.
Thank you. My name is Sylvia Jones, and I moved to Dufferin County 30 years ago because I was offered a job at a new radio station that was just going on the air. I've proudly called Dufferin-Caledon my home ever since. I'm running for re-election as your member of Provincial Parliament because I want other young people to have the opportunity to live and work in our community, just like I did. Our 5 priorities will do just that. By cleaning up the hydro mess and firing the Hydro One CEO $6 million man, by putting more money back in your pocket and scrapping the carbon tax, by restoring responsibility, accountability, and trust in government, by encouraging businesses to create good jobs by cutting taxes, red tape, and unnecessary regulation, by cutting hospital wait times and building 30,000 new long-term care beds across Ontario. A PC government will work for you to bring relief to families and make Ontario open for business again. On June 7th, you have a clear choice, and I hope that you will re-elect me, Sylvia Jones, as your Provincial Member of Parliament. Thank you.
And candidate number 5, your closing remarks, please.
Thanks, Joe. There has been some great questions tonight and meaningful discussion. When it comes down to it, the policies, platforms, and candidates should all be focused on only one thing and one thing only, and that's you. I've been in this riding a long time, and it matters to me what happens next. I believe for voters to make an informed choice, there should be transparency and information on how exactly the party will move forward on their promises and how they intend to pay for them. What Sylvia said sounds nice tonight, but the reality is that the PCs do not and have no plan, and they certainly haven't got any costing. We're talking about corporate tax reduction when Ontario is already the lowest in Canada. They will slash childcare funding, leaving $175 per child. They're talking about what they'll add and not being transparent about what they'll cut. For starters, the PCs will cut $200 million from mental health support, leaving families with less help. They'll cut $400 million from broadband, something that our businesses and entrepreneurs are in desperate need of. They'll cut business support programs and funding for natural gas. And let me be clear, despite what Sylvia is saying, without natural gas grant program, no private company will fill that gap, and she knows it. Over the last while, here's a little list of things that Sylvia actually has voted against in the House. Action on climate change, raising the minimum wage, enhanced pension, the 2016-17-18 budget that included OHIP plus childcare, support for farmers, mental health investments, and action on affordable housing. This would have all been good things for this riding as well as the rest of Ontario. Let me be clear that a vote for Sylvia is a vote for Doug Ford. Sylvia Jones is willing to stand behind and embrace Doug Ford, a man that has no experience and no plan for the province. I believe this election we need to vote for Ontario where no family is left behind. Thank you again for your engagement, interest, and attention. On June the 7th, I am asking for your vote to make Dufferin-Caledon a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Well, that almost concludes tonight's forum. I would like to thank the candidates for being here tonight to meet the voters and people of Dufferin County and to respond to important issues ahead of the election. What I'd like to do at this time, I'd like to just once again give our candidates an opportunity. We'll reintroduce who they are, and if you'd be so kind just to stand up, if you don't mind. So, Jeff Harris is your Ontario Libertarian Party candidate. Laura Campbell is your Ontario Green Party candidate. Andrea Malarkey is your Ontario New Democratic Party candidate. Sylvia Jones, your Ontario Progressive Conservative Party candidate. And Bob Gordonier is your Ontario Liberal candidate. There are some thank yous for those that are here. We want to thank those that attended the Shelburne Forum. And again, we are really pleased with those that have attended here at the Orangeville District Secondary School. Before we do sign off, I'd like to highlight the following, because again, without their assistance and support, the forum wouldn't be the success that it is. We would certainly like to thank the ODSS AV Tech team for organizing the Orangeville District Secondary Cafeteria to look and certainly be set up like a forum. So let's give them a nice round of applause. Truly like to thank again Greg and Heather Holmes from Holmes Appliance in Shelburne for providing the audio tonight. Really wonderful to have you here again. I'd like to thank also Todd Cullison and the Rogers TV crew for supporting tonight's broadcast. Just as an FYI, the forum will be broadcast available on Rogers TV website and will begin airing on Rogers Television May 27th through to June the 6th. So for those of you that are subscribers of Rogers, certainly take advantage of that. With the industry feeling the impacts of the increase in cumulative burden, Chambers of Commerce and Boards of Trade across the province of Ontario warning that Ontario's next government must be committed to taking bold action in providing pro-growth policy solutions. Vote Prosperity aims to strengthen businesses and competitiveness, foster job creation, build healthy communities, and improve government accountability. Ontario has the foundation for sustainable and equitable growth, but bold action and leadership will be required of the newly elected Ontario government, whichever party that may be. On behalf of the Dufferin Board of Trade, we would like to thank Pete Renshaw, the chair, who has been eloquent in making sure that our timing is right on. I'd like to thank Diana Morris, who's the General Manager of the Dufferin Board of Trade, and Nick Nulamia, our Communications Director for the Dufferin Board of Trade as well. Please remember that the Ontario election takes place on June the 7th. As is the case, as we say, be sure you get out there and vote. Have yourself a wonderful evening, and again, we want to thank the Rogers crew for providing us with this opportunity for the broadcast this evening.
One of the greatest rights we have in Canada is to have your say. In Ontario, this right is one of the pillars that ensures democracy in our local municipal and school board elections. It gives you the freedom of choice and a voice to your opinions in choosing the municipal and school board representatives in your community. If you are at least 18 years of age, a Canadian citizen, and a resident of or own property in Ontario, you can participate in your local municipal and school board elections this fall. One way to make this process more efficient is to verify that your name is on the preliminary list of electors used to prepare the voters list for Election Day. You can confirm or update your information conveniently at voterlookup.ca. The process is just 3 simple steps and should only take you a few minutes to complete. First, fill in your personal details. Next, select the options that best describe your situation. The system will confirm your elector status and/or prompt you for additional information if required. And finally, verify and save your information. It's as simple as that. So remember, have your say. Log on today.